to listen to that. As everybody knows, this issue started actually with council. I don't know that those that were inquiring even realized the park board existed, quite frankly. Subsequent to the legal opinion by our law director that named our board in that, the issue came to us to review and maybe make a change and maybe not, but for us to at least discuss. So that's why it's on the agenda this evening. I guess if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the matter before we start our discussion, I'd be happy to entertain that. I would ask that you limit your comments to give everybody a chance, and also maybe not be repetitive. If you want to stand up and say, I agree with what's been said, that's fine. I'd rather not hear 5 minutes of the same thing prior, but I do want to make sure everybody has a chance to talk to what you're here tonight. Having said that, is there anyone that, yeah, you could ask them to state their name and their address. Yeah, we do have to keep this in a public meeting, so we are required to keep minutes of the meeting. So if you could, Matt reminded me to help him because he transcribes our minutes. If you could state your name and your address for the minutes, I would appreciate it. You don't have to talk, believe me, but if there's anyone that wants to make a statement, we'd be glad to listen. No? Okay, that's fine. Diana?
I will.
Okay.
I'll start, maybe others will follow.
Okay.
Diana Colwood with the 341 North Haggerty Way. I'm here as a council representative, and I see Carol Klinger is here as well. I don't see any other council representatives this evening. But I'll begin by saying that, yes, council, through our president, requested a legal opinion on the basis that this complaint had been made against our rate policy at the Natatorium. And you all have seen the legal opinion. I don't need to dive into the details of that. But I will say this, is based on what action you all take, this may or may not then come back to council. And to give you some sense of what the process will be. If you decide to take action and you reform your rate policy and it meets with everyone's approval, then it's over and done with from our perspective. If you decide not to make any changes in your rate policy, then council will be reviewing whether or not, per ordinance, we want to more or less usurp your authority to establish a rate policy on our own. That's something the legal opinion made clear that we could do. And so I would imagine that would be the next step. We would be considering bringing an ordinance down to make that decision. Assuming that ordinance comes and gets passed, for example, I'm not saying it would, but if it did, the next step would be for council to appoint an ad hoc committee to oversee the current rate structure, look at options, look at statistics, of course, try to look at neighboring communities and glean from them what they're doing with their rate structures. And then that ad hoc committee would report back to council with a recommendation, one way or the other, and then that would be voted on by a separate ordinance. So I perceive this as essentially a two-step process from council's perspective. I'm not going to try to influence your opinions. I think you all have your own opinions. I'm not here to try to tell you how to vote or what to do with this issue. It's certainly a park board issue at this point. So I just want to give some insight as to where it could end up going from here. And I'm here to answer any questions if anyone has. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll speak. My name is Chris McCombs. I'm at 830 Hayes Avenue in Cuyahoga Falls, 44221. Also the pastor of Broadman Baptist Church, 350 East Bath Road. I sent a letter to everyone through Mr. Stewart. Thank you for passing it on.
Yeah, we did receive it.
Okay, just in brief, most of the people in this room are supporting of us. And I want you to know this is not personal. This is principle for me. This is a principle issue, and it goes beyond rates. I know that Mrs. Calavicchio said it's a rate structure, and that's what you are dealing with. But it goes beyond that. We've been sucked into a social agenda here. There's also some social issues connected with this that are strong. And I want to encourage you guys, I don't envy your position, I want to encourage you to stand on principle, I hope, and do the right thing for our community and society. I want to say this, the social institution of marriage. I'm not coming to you. I believe in the Bible, but I'm going to keep that separate right now. The social institution of marriage has always, throughout civilization, been established to procreate, establish family, and perpetuate community. All right? Those things are throughout history. We've never had to deal with what we're dealing with now. I gave you all 5 points. The 4 I want you to really consider in the letter is 1, the state constitution of the state of Ohio clearly defines marriage. We are not, as a subcomponent of this state, having the right to go against that. Also, the way I read it, even though I know that counsel gave you other counsel, we can't make a sub-parallel. We can't go around it, skirt around it. We can't say, well, let's make a different name. It's the same thing. Let's give it another name. I don't see that. I think that's not what the Constitution says. So I think, to me, that ends it. That's me personally from a law perspective. Secondly, I wanted to make sure that it's a fiscal thing. If I'm understanding, the Natatorium has always operated in the black. Why would we consider changing this? Why would we put ourselves in a situation to where we don't? And I believe, I've talked to the mayor, I've seen what he's written, I've had extensive conversations with the mayor. His position is that too, and I hope that he shared that with you all as well. The other thing is, historically, we have never seen this. If we look at history and we go through the social institution of marriage, sexual preference has never, ever been connected with the social institution of marriage. So again, this is a principle matter. It's not a matter of what's right and what's wrong per se. I'm not going to get into the morals of it. What I am going to say historically is that those two have not been connected. Not even going back to the Greek Empire, when they did promote open homosexuality, it was never connected with the social institution of marriage. It was separate. Why would we think we have greater wisdom than those who have preceded us and do something different than that? I hope that we will not go down that path and we'll make the right decision to stick with that. And the last point I want to make is the religious precedents here. Not from Christianity, which I am. I do believe in the authority of God. I believe in the authority of Scripture. However, the 5 major world religions, all 5 of them, are against the practice of gay marriage. None of them condone it. Not a single one. So I think also from a religious, spiritual, generic standpoint, you have precedents on all 4 of those areas. And then if you did give me a delineation, I'd say also morality on this aspect. And again, it's not taking away discriminating or saying someone can't have the right to choose their sexual preference. I understand we live in that, and everyone has the right to choose their sexual preference. No one is also telling them they cannot patron a place or an establishment. So no one's doing that. And I hope that we won't go down that and be sucked into this social agenda, and that we'll stand with the policy that we do have currently and for the success and the good of our community. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else?
My name is Shannon Daringer, and I support what Pastor Capone says, and I also ask that the board, and if it went back to council, I would ask the council as well, how can you expect the citizens of your community to uphold the laws if our leaders will not uphold the Constitution of the state of Ohio?
Just an informal poll, and you don't have to participate. How many are residents of Cuyahoga Falls in the audience? How many are members of the Natatorium? We can't hear. Oh, I'm sorry, members of the Natatorium.
I want to
We appreciate your business. All the others on the way out, there's membership forms.
Question.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I would like to speak. I'm Bonnie Valentine. I live at 948 Chalker Street in Akron. I am a member, actually, of the church. I do hope that, after what he said, that you don't even consider taking the word marriage out of your membership, perhaps, and making it anyone who lives in the same household. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
I'll be quick. David Kimberly. I'm a member, and I love this place. For a long time, my company sent me down to North Carolina, and I came back. As soon as I came back, I joined the Natatorium again. I used to be a member when it was a little building over there. I just want to thank you guys for having such a great facility as this. And I hope the vote doesn't get So, take care of this. You have the Holy Spirit of blessing you.
Right. There's no question it's become an emotional issue. There's a lot of things at play. Responding to the legal aspect, and I'm not a lawyer. Currently, in our rate structure, we reference the state of Ohio Constitution as means of being able to receive the discount. We don't have to mention that. It's been there for a while. I don't know how much thought was given at that time when they did that, but it doesn't have to be there. So some comments were, you hope we don't break the law. If that reference isn't there, the law's not being broken, just with regards to that. So I don't want anyone to think that if there is a change of some sort, that it doesn't automatically mean we're breaking a law. Nobody here wants to do that. So, if that's everybody in the audience, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back here to the park board. Sinking the ship, I guess, or making sure we don't lose money. That is a concern. We don't want to do that. These folks, and we're not day to day. I don't want you to think we run this place day to day. We do not. You know, the park director, the assistant, these folks over here, they run it day to day, and they work more than 40 hours a week doing it. So, and they do a tremendous job. They make our job easy. We can just sit here and say, great news, keep, pat them on the back. But they work real hard to do that. Especially in these economic times, you don't want to disrupt revenue, but it's hard to come by. And there's a lot of work to keep people here. And sir, you said you came back and joined, and we appreciate that. So any thoughts of going to a different rate structure would have to be analyzed. And Mr. Combs indicated that the mayor, that's what he was saying, and I agree with that portion of it, that we don't want to make a change. We have 10,000 members that come into our rate structure and they shake out somehow, and out comes $4 million. And that's what helps us run this place. So if there's any change there, we want to ensure that the rates are satisfactory to ensure we still have money to run this place. To not do that would be a disservice to the residents of Cuyahoga Falls. It would make our two members of the city council sitting here tonight a little anxious if we came to them once down the road and said, oh, by the way, we're $4 million shy, help us out. There's not a bucket of money anywhere for them to reach into. So anything like that would need some thought. I'm going to make a motion and we can discuss. But we have talked prior to this meeting, a number of us, trying to sort all of these types of things out. If any change should be made, if a change should be made, how do we go about it? I believe we should make a change. I believe what I would like to do is make a motion that between now and then, we have done some research on it. Well, we haven't. Our park director and his staff have done some research on if we did go to a different rate structure, such as a head of household rate structure. I know many of you just stood up and asked if we don't do that, but there would be a revenue shortfall that we would need to make up. It's roughly $48,000. I think it's doable. I'd like to change. I'd like us to do that effective June 1st, that we move to a head of household rate structure. In the meantime, I would like to change the column on our rate sheet that says to have the discount rate, you have to be married in accordance to the state of Ohio Constitution. In my motion will be to remove that, change that to with partner until June 1st. Anybody legally married, domestic partnership, or civil union in accordance with any of the laws in the United States. To expand that to include more people. And again, that would ostensibly end June 1st when we enact the head of household rate structure.
this is the time for sharing of opinions, and I'd like to share an opinion. And I'm the only member of the present party board who was a member of the park board when the Natatorium opened. And as I recall, you know your memory gets kind of fuzzy at times. And the older you get, trust me, the fuzzier it gets. But as I recall, this question on rates, and specifically the married part, was a great concern to the park board when the rates were established. And they weren't sure about the word marriage, whether it even should be used, until they realized that the Ohio Constitution defines what marriage is. And after that, then the rates were put into effect with marriage in there, the marriage segment. And then everybody felt comfortable with it. Now, the board at that time was, let's say, a little more mature, I'm guessing, age-wise, average age, than what it is now. At that time, they were primarily teachers or retired teachers. There was one doctor, and I came on board, just about to retire, and my degree is a mechanical engineer. And I worked for about 10 years at an architectural engineering firm. And these were the kinds of projects that I was involved with, mainly client relations. I was involved in presentations. So when we interviewed construction firms and engineers, I had all the questions because I had received those questions. And it was really exciting. Planning that went into the physical map, as the one gentleman said, it's a neat place, and I agree with you. It is a neat place. It's 115,000 square feet, over 2.5 acres under roof. But one thing I want to share with everybody, next Wednesday, March 14th, will be the half-year anniversary of the opening of the NAP. The NAP opened on September 14th, 2004. So we're 7.5 years into the operation of the NAP. A former superintendent said, as complicated and taxing and time-consuming as it was to put the NAP together on paper, what features they have, what size of pool, what types of pools, all the facilities, it was just exhausting. But as taxing and exhausting as that process was, the operation of the Natatorium would be far more complicated. And I will share one other fact, and then I'm going to shut up. In the 7.5 years this facility has been in operation, there has been 4 facility directors. That's the person that runs the place. That's the person who makes the bottom line look good. That's the person who's the quarterback, the general manager, the head coach, whatever you want to call them. That's the person that drives the money to the bottom, drives it to the bottom line. There are over 130 classes given each week here. I was astounded. Now, that's a figure of a couple of years ago. It may not be accurate. The basketball coach across the street says, "I can never use your basketball floor." I said, "It's not your basketball floor. We're using that space for classes." There's so many things going on here. This is a sub-society of society itself. Now, the reason I voted for the marriage being in the rate structures, it sounded good because it's in the Constitution, and true, you're not in violation if it doesn't appear there. but to me, that gives it substance. And I know biblically speaking, there are many people that will be upset if it's yanked out. It's a situation that is complex, complicated, and full of all kinds of variables. But one of the chief duties of this group, people at this table, both staff and board members, is make the money work out. And that is a big issue. So I would be against changing the Mary discount rate. Thank you for your, one other thing I want to mention, I commend you, Tim. You are such a gentleman. The way you've handled this, you and I haven't met personally on this. We've had several telephone calls, and you always return my call, I think several, 3 phone calls. But it takes something to be in disagreement and not be disagreeable. And that is you. And even though we may have differences of opinion, we aren't at odds. And I commend you for that.
I appreciate it.
Really.
Can I get that tape of the recording? She knows that I can't be agreeable once in a while. Are there any other comments regarding this issue before I call for a vote? Deb?
I think all of us here can either agree or disagree, and we're going to be able to walk out of here and still be able to attend this park board meeting next month, and all be able to work together again, just like we have every other month. I will also be, as I believe Mr. Sebastian is, voting no against Mr. Borlaug's motion that he's put out there. I'm in agreement that it could stay the same, the natatorium could stay the same with the way it is run currently, because we are following the Ohio Constitution. When the Ohio Constitution changes, the natatorium policy will change along with the Ohio Constitution. That would be fine with me. I am okay with that. If that's how things go, then I would be okay with that. I am also okay if we have conversation about having a household policy come June 1st, and we look into that. We look into finding out what we do to have a household without any kind of exception between now and then. Look into that, figure that out, figure out what we're going to do to make up for that money. I am okay with having that discussion between now and then. I would be willing to make a motion that if we have to have a motion, that we consider that between now and then. I don't think we need one. I think we can have some conversation in our next month's meeting as far as what we do to make up that kind of money, the $48,000. And we look into that between now and then and just have a household rate. Because I think once you start making exceptions, then you open up a can of worms that you can't go back. Because I think there are so many other people. You have domestic partners, you have common law, you have so many other exceptions that once you start the ball rolling with exceptions, it's just going to go on and on and on. And I just think it's just something that you can't go back once you start with one exception. And that is the reason why I'm voting no, and for no other reason. And again, I know we can work together next month and the month after.
Absolutely. I would just respond that I would submit that my motion takes care of what you just said, would be some other exceptions. And that our current rate structure is actually full of exceptions. It's been working fine up until now. It's been in place for a number of years, which in and of itself may say that it probably should be reviewed. But I appreciate everybody's comments. I'm going to call the question if there's no other comments. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye, or nay? No.
Okay, motion fails 3-2. Are there any other motions? Okay, so what we need to do is to let council know that this body's majority wants to tell them that we're going to do. I don't want to infer from silence that that's staying the same. Debbie, you kind of gave your opinion, but at this time you want to remain the same.
I would like to remain the same, but I think that we should, I mean, I think there are a lot of things that if you do a household discount, I mean, I think that, and I'll just give myself as
Or
an
just household
example.
rates.
A household rate. I'll give myself as an example. I live with someone, I have a child that is in my household. How do we establish that rate structure as far as how do we, the utilities are in my name, so how do we establish, do we get a pay stub, do we get a driver's license from the person that I live with? And then he has children, so, say someone like that would say, I want his children involved too. How do we do that? I mean, there's going to be a lot of,
There's no question. Yeah,
You know,
it'll have to be.
it goes on and on.
We have a crack
There's,
staff. We can figure it out.
You gotta be looking at this. I don't think it's.
I understand.
An answer today.
Sure.
I don't know.
You may.
To the extent that council board would direct us, we would make whatever study you would ask us to make. The only little glitch we had in trying to get it on the kind of timeline, I had one pregnant director here, and the person that would backfill her is to have her baby the day before this one is. So we're losing. Well,
Don't drink from the water.
yeah, here to that. So if the board would want us to do research on anything, we will do whatever is requested. The timeline might be a little bit elongated because what we've had to put in place, and I have a plan, Ed is going to take over overseeing waterworks while these ladies are out. I'm going to take over overseeing the NAT while these ladies are out. But at the same time, our other work doesn't go away. Now, that isn't meant to be a complaint. I'm just saying the days are going to be pretty full. So if you ask us to do something, I would get back to you with a level of timeline that we could maybe accomplish something. That timeline may be longer than you would have thought. Why should it take that long? I'm just saying up front, it's, the reason is obvious.
You're wearing black.
There should be babies before the next park board.
Yeah, that's all. Probably three. Laura, you want to remain the same at this time?
I don't think there should be any change.
Okay, and Dick?
That's my feeling also.
Very good. Okay, so let the record reflect that the majority of the park board wants the rate structure and definitions therein to remain the same. Matt, I'm going to ask that you transcribe this section of the meeting. I'm sorry it happens to be the longest section, word for word, that we can forward that information to council. I know we have two here, but I think we owe it to the council members individually a transcription of tonight's meeting. That is actually the end of our business. We do have public input section. I know I asked some of you, but I knew you wanted to talk before we actually voted on this. So if there's anyone that wants to make any comments now, you're welcome to. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Adjourned. Folks, I want to thank you for your attention, for coming tonight. We appreciate your comments.